But one thing that I don't even know if I talked to y'all about, or if I put it on the list. If I did, I put it up late. Trauma versus accountability. And I don't necessarily think this is a versus conversation, right? But as I'm going to pitch them that way for the sake of getting the conversation going. So Wayne, we had that conversation about the individual who suffered from some trauma, ended up like attempting to stab a significant other, and how that's being dealt with. And I said within the context of the world that we live in today, those were two totally separate events, two different people involved, and oftentimes we won't use that trauma from years ago as a reason to explain why that event happened when that that culminating event could be tied to the trauma. And so when we look at criminals, and I mean people who are guilty of, violent crimes that are not in retaliation to something, right? Aggressive violent crimes. Your serial, name that, murderer, rapist, thief, whatever. People who regularly do things that society deems to be improper behavior beyond the scope of survival. Um, how much do we tie the trauma that that person experienced throughout their life to their actions? Like, I think there is a level of trauma that explains why R. Kelly acts the way that he acts in life, right? But is being approached from an accountability point of view, which is the after. Is we're gonna hold you to the societal standard because you have not met it, but we're not looking at what led you to this point, and not defending R. Kelly by no means. But how do you get to the point to living that life to where you believe that what you're doing is acceptable without having a lot of trauma that led you to untreated trauma that led
Bruh, that's a strong statement. Let me say it this way. With no accountability in reference to your inner circle, the people that are close to you and understand who you are, if you don't trust their judgment and they don't trust yours, you're not going to look at each other and have that real conversation of, hey man, you're out of line. If you don't trust that, you're not going to accept that. However, the trauma portion of it, as ignorant as it could be, I don't attribute a lot to trauma. The DSM-5 will disagree with me vehemently, but I don't attribute a lot to trauma because we have the ability to acknowledge a situation for what it is and make a choice on our next action. Behavior, some would say is learned, some would say it's instinctual. But throughout our traditional upbringing in this nation specifically, we get a pretty good idea of acceptable and not acceptable behaviors based on those that we're living around. We change our environment, we have a chance to change our behaviors, our perspectives, our vantage points. For the idea of trauma being the reason egregious acts are done, I struggle with that deeply. And I struggle with that because I am a own your mess type of person. I did it, it's on me, and I'm gonna take full responsibility for what I did. That makes it hard for me to look at another situation and say they have deep rooted issues stemming from their childhood that needs to be addressed, and that's the reason why they're going through what they're going through because it's never been addressed. I struggle with that. I understand it's valid. I understand it exists, but for me, it's a tough place to be in to say you saw that child, you asked that child to do those things to you as an adult, and you were okay with it, and your circle was okay with it. I don't blame that on his trauma. I blame that on his decisions.
Wayne, is your struggle then with the fact that as an adult, the person did not, like an R. Kelly, did not choose to address his trauma, or is your? I understand that issue is that he made poor decisions, right? Like, I understand something happened to you in your childhood. I understand. As an adult, this other thing happened. Maybe your trauma was connected to that. You made a poor decision still. So would you say that in some way the issue you take with that person is also in the fact that he didn't decide to deal with the trauma, so that he didn't make the later decision? I hope what I'm asking makes sense.
Your question does make sense to me, and my response to that is no. That's not the issue. I don't attribute it to age. Maturity isn't age driven, and we consider adulthood an age. I attribute it to you looked at life around you as you saw it, and whatever state of mind you were in, based on whatever occurred, and you opted to go that direction. Now, I mentioned the DSM-5 earlier because there's a lot of language in there that'll say, no, this is the reason why they did that, and because of that chemical imbalance that they are experiencing, they shut certain parts of their mind off. Therefore, they automatically do that. I understand that science that goes into it. I am you made a choice person though, and the choice you made was piss poor, and you chose an egregious act based on your piss poor choices.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see like the versus accountability thing because I think you're always accountable for your actions, no matter if you experience trauma or not, because you always have a choice between right and wrong. And I understand that the DSM 5 says this person did this because of this, but they also had a choice between right and wrong. We always have a choice between right or wrong. I think our brain has fight and flight in it, and we are all able to shut down things because there is some trauma involved in it, and then we commit an act, whether it be good or bad. I think we sometimes don't know that we're shutting down stuff in our brain or bringing up things, and it just happens naturally. But you still have a choice. You have a moment, a split second to be like, I'm not going to do that. And I struggle with it being a versus. I think that, yeah, you can have trauma, but you have a choice to make. Are you going to do that or you're not going to do it? Because if you can get help from a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist for your issues, that means you can absolutely choose between right and wrong. If those doctors exist to help us, that means we can overcome whatever it is that we have going on in our brains that make us choose this wrong decision.
But when we talk about the decision piece, because I don't want to get away from that, I think we all do make decisions. But what are our decisions based from? They're based from our experiences. What do you draw from to make a decision? I remember someone once told me that people don't rise to the moment, they fall back to their lowest point of training or their highest point of training, some shit like that or whatever. So you fall back on your experiences that you've been through, and what if your decision making process isn't rooted in societal right and wrong, is rooted in what you've lived. And unfortunately, what you've lived that is presented as life is presented as right does not align with society. And then you find yourself years later making those decisions based off of your experiences that don't align with what's acceptable in society. And it's hard for me to just sit here and say that, oh yeah, he made a choice. Yes, the person made a choice, but what led up to that choice, and what do we as a society owe that person post that decision, or excuse me, prior to that decision and post that decision? And it speaks for me to a bigger conversation, a much bigger conversation in what we're doing as far as our prison system goes. Are we punishing people, or are we trying to rehabilitate people? And I think that it takes a look at both the decision, but also the experiences that led to the decision to come up with the best answer for addressing these situations.
Let's stir the pot, big dog. Two things can be true. You can't be held accountable for your decisions, and your decisions can be a matter of trauma. For me, depending on what your act is, if you didn't truly see it as a problem, you wouldn't have kept it private. I can't attribute it to a trauma-related issue if you hide what you're doing. If you're hiding your egregious behavior, the people that you describe, the rapists, the murderers, the sexual assaulters, they are hiding their behaviors. They are not doing this publicly. Outside of one prolific rapper, there are very few that are putting it in their music and broadcasting it. These are hidden acts. And we hide things when we're ashamed of them, when we don't want to make that act that we're doing a public thing because we know it impacts our bottom dollar. We know it impacts the way that we live. So we hide it. We hide or we show that shame in scenarios where we feel there's something wrong. If I knew I was in the right, I had no issue going public and having that conversation about the right. But the fact that it's wrong, the fact that that's a child, and I asked that child to pee somewhere and do all these weird things, I knew I was wrong. Now, I look at the prison system. I can't look at the prison system and expect the prison system to rehabilitate my mind or reform my mind for those deep-rooted issues, because the system isn't set up for that. The system is set up for punishment and removal from society. The system isn't set up and designed to put you back into society. It's designed to punish and remove. So I don't attribute it to the prison system. Well,
should it be set up that way though?
If we see crime as a matter of mental health issues, we can go there. But not all crime is a matter of mental health. Some crime is because people just decide to do bad things for their own personal joys.
You and Adam said something that kind of intertwined that I wanted to touch on for a second. So Adam said, if this is something that you're used to seeing, right? And then you were released into society and you did it again. And then you talked about how you're hiding it because you know it's wrong. So question, what if I grew up in a house where I saw someone doing these things all the time that were bad and hiding them? So now as a child, I think it's right to do this and hide it. And so I go out into society as an adult and now I do it and I hide it because I think hiding it is the right thing to do. Not hiding it because I know it's wrong, but hiding it because that's what I was taught to do. Now what?
It's a learned behavior, and that I understand. And it's very difficult to recover from learned patterns and learned behaviors. I still attribute it to you made a choice to hide it. Because as you grow through life, regardless of your age, as you progress from a young child forward, you get an idea based on not just what's happening in your house, but in the rest of your circle of acceptable and not acceptable. There are a few scenarios out there where people do not have contact with society. And for those scenarios, I understand and I get it. You don't have contact with anything else. So what you see is your life. For those that do have contact with society and they do have interactions and they do have conversations and they do hear crazy things and they acknowledge them for what they are, I unfortunately continue to stand firm on you made a choice. And although you have a very traumatic past, with your very traumatic past, you made a choice to take on that egregious behavior.
I think actually everything that I've heard discussed so far makes a case that accountability is actually a very useful tool in healing from trauma. Because if we can agree that both of these things can exist, you can have a traumatic experience that makes you think it's okay to do something, but it also cannot be okay to do. And you also similarly can choose to do that thing because of your trauma, but it also could have been wrong. So you should be accountable for it. It may be that the accountability, which now has to be outside of yourself, is the thing that says, oh, I have to do something else. It's the thing that makes you say, oh, I have to do something else. Because I've been able to do this all this time and it has not disturbed anything I have going on. But when I'm held accountable by somebody and they say, you can't do that. This is the response that I have for you, and the response is not something that you like, then maybe there's something else that you have to consider about the action. Is this really right? I think sometimes, unfortunately, people abuse the concept that I'm speaking of, and they kind of wield it to be insensitive to speaking with, like, engaging with people who are healing from trauma. But I also think that other people, and it's actually something that is really personal to me because I'm trying to be better at accountability, is there are some other people who hurt another's traumatic experience by never exacting accountability. And both of those are not okay.
I appreciate that insight. Thank you.
Yeah, man, that was super dope. That was a good spin and a good place to where I kind of wanted to go to this with this conversation, because I think both exist, and there is a line of understanding where you have to understand what someone's went through as it relates to decisions that they make, but that does not necessarily strip them from having to be held accountable for those decisions, because at the end of the day, we're all dealing with something, and we've all seen some things, we've all heard some things, we've had some things done to us, and it's about how we respond and react to it. And some will get there faster than others. Good for them, but eventually you have to get over what you've gone through. I don't care what it is, I don't care how bad it is. You have an existence here in life, and for you to maximize your existence, for you to do the things that you may believe that you were sent here to do, you have to get past those things and become a functional member of this society that we live in. I've got nothing else. Is there anything that y'all want to get to?
I just want to add, get over. I don't mean to say this like this because I appreciate everything you just said.
Is that what you said?
I just want to add, get over to the list of phrases to cancel.
How? Explain it real quick.
I think to tell someone who is healing through something or working through the dynamics of a traumatic situation or whatever, even if it's something egregious like the example that we've been using with abusing children, to get over something is dignity stripping. It is not considerate of the fact that healing is work, and hard work, and it is used as haphazardly as people used to. I don't think they do it as much now, but as people used to say something like, go kill yourself. I hated that ever came up. Like, Get
That's
over
fair.
it. What do you mean? Like, what you mean get over it? What you want me to do?
Well, I guess
Jump over my lifetime trauma? Jump over
learn to live with your experiences.
And I know that's not what you meant when you said it, which is why I wanted to try, if I could, to separate them. But I want to add the common use of the term get over to the list of things to cancel because I actually hate it.
I stand in support with you on that statement of removing the idea of get over it from trauma related experiences. It doesn't just carry a level of insensitivity towards the individual person and the actions that they have gone through. It also speaks to the fact that when you tell a person to simply get over something, we're not talking about a river, we're not talking about a lake, we're not talking about something you just build a bridge and go away from. We're speaking towards something that is ingrained in a person in the most shocking of ways. And it requires us to really put some energy into progression to kind of uproot what it is that has been sown and taken life in the mind of the person. So I'm with you on that one, Candace.
For sure. It's just, and I think all of us I hope all of us is healing through something. But for those of us who are being very intentional about healing through something and have been any time, like you recognize that illustration that Wayne just painted as being very present.
Lord, send you healing.
Don't.
Well, chill, we're wrapping it up right now. Glad you could join us for the wrap up. Was there anything you'd like to add?
Nah, y'all got it.
Kariki, go ahead and make sure you plug your pages.
So come to Rooted Wellness Co _ at on Instagram. We do a couple of stuff there. We do wellness challenges. We do Bible study on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. We do Bible in 1 year, and we do private yoga sessions. So whatever you need, all are welcome.
How much for the private yoga sessions?
$30 for 30 minutes, or if you would like several sessions, we can discuss a discount.
All right, we're gonna have to get you back to talk specifically about Rooted Wellness, not with all these other people out here giving their opinions on life and stuff, because people actually care to hear that shit. You plugging anything, Wayne?
No.
Follow Bose the Frenchie. Anything else, Candace? All right, go ahead. Tell us about your podcast one more time.
Again?
Just real quick. Just tell us where to find it at. You know.
The podcast is called Black and Called. If you go to Black and Called on Instagram, the link is in the bio. Right now it's on Buzzsprout and on Spotify. Will soon be on Apple Podcasts.
That's beautiful. Shout out to them. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. We kept it under our target time. I'm so proud of you all. Like I said, one bathroom break and didn't even go to the bathroom. You talk about growth here. My bladder is growing day by day.
That's more so depending on what's in that cup.
Well,
and what's been in that cup the past week?
Well, you know what? I've been drinking water, and y'all can kiss my ass. So, anyways, it was great to have y'all. Love y'all so much. Kariki, thanks for coming on. Don't be a ghost, whatever that word I was looking for. Yeah, don't be a ghost. Don't be a stranger. There we go. Don't be a stranger. Big baby, yeah.